Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Excellent. And very clearly, please?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. It was on a Saturday morning, I believe in September 2001, precisely after the September 11 attack in the United States. There was also another crisis in Nigeria. It was a just crisis. A day before, I had gone to play football on the pitch. We had lived in Bukuru Locust. It's around Bukuru area, just south local government. And on a Friday, I love football so much. So I went to play football with my friends. Some of them the Igbos, some the Yorubas, but majority of them the locals. And the locals in Jos are the majority of them the Biroms. Then perhaps on the hierarchy come the Angus. Then there are other little ones, I think, if I can remember, the Tarok, the Madas. And then when we were playing the football, after we finished around the night, you begin to hear stories about things happening in the terminus area of the city. The terminus is the market in the city, and that's the central area, and it's in the Jos North local government. But of course, you don't take it any serious. Things happen. And then we came back home as little kids. At that time, perhaps I was 11, 12 years old. When we came back, and my father also returned from his business, things didn't seem to be normal anymore. There were scary things are happening. There's a Friday prayer scenario with some locals. We don't know, but things happen, and then you just... So in the morning, I remember my mother and the sisters, they cooked. I could remember a local delicacy, tuomia kupiwa at that time. And then after that, suddenly after around, if I can remember, around 10 a.m., then you begin to hear a sound of a moving mob, if you would like. Like, if I will describe it, it's like a bee. When the bees are coming here, zoom. It was like some people coming from the remote areas, the villages. You could hear the sound. You know that something is happening. And then after some hours, the people, the locals in the area, they came out and stood in front of their houses. It was scary scene. I mean, even for a 12-year-old. Then, of course, my father came out, and we all came out. I mean, it's scary. And then suddenly what happened? My father had some friends with the locals, and he went in. And then he had a classmate, a very tall woman at that time. I cannot remember her name. And she said, well, look, if this thing starts, she said it because, of course, everyone speaks Hausa at that time, it's going to be worse than that of Gero. Now, Gero is a remote area from Bukuru. Perhaps I cannot remember. I've never been there, but it's just perhaps some few kilometers from Bukuru. And Bukuru, as I said, is in the south, just south local government. So, and in what happened in Gero was a religious, or if you like, ethnic, religious crisis, and it was very deadly. And once my father had that, he knew danger was ahead. So he took us all in his Mercedes-Benz at that time. And then at that time, I could remember there was a neighbor. She had a son called Abdul Razak. Then she took the neighbor, her husband was away, he's traveled. So we took her in the Mercedes and we moved. And you could hear them like, okay, these guys are running away. You could hear the locals saying that. But we had to move. It's scary. And then there was a dilemma. Where do you go to? You know, when you want to run away from a mob, you're afraid not to encounter the mob. So when we moved, my father was confused. And then luckily there was an Air Force girls' secondary school around the area. And my sister was a student at that school, so we were allowed to enter the school. So we went into the school, and my father said, look, I drop you guys, and I go see what is happening. And once he was about to go back, already there's a roadblock. Tires were burning. Things have started. There was youth. The youth, you cannot see their number. They were carrying clubs, machetes. They were shouting. Their eyes were red. They were hungry for something. You don't even know what they're hungry for, but you could hear the chants. Some in the Hausa and some in the local language. He was about to go, but he couldn't. He returned back. And then one of his friends was about to go in, because he's a local, of course he goes in. He said, okay, look, you go in. Tell me whatever happens to my house. Okay, fine. Because then it's a landline system. So my father kept calling him and he didn't pick because, of course, he didn't want to tell him the sad news. Of course, our house was burnt down completely. And well, the people, the locals, because at that time the community was growing, and we felt, okay, we need to have a mosque, of course. There were many churches, it's a Christian site. We felt, okay, we need a local mosque. And I don't know, my father and his friend decided to build a mosque. And he was not the one building, but because our house was close to the mosque and all the materials were kept in our house, the people thought he was building the mosque because he was quite, at that time, financially well-to-do. So what they did was, my father left a car in the house. So they took the car. I don't know how they did it. I was not there. Then they put the car in the mosque and burnt down the mosque. We saw that when we came, of course, after some time. And then, of course, after some days, that night, we spent my relatives, my sisters, they spent the night in the chemistry lab. My father, we spent the night in the Mercedes. And maybe that's why I like Mercedes-Benz. I don't know why, but then we moved to the city. But you see, I'm trying to paint a picture. This is a personal experience about how a crisis can be. We moved to a city because now the city is populated by people that look like me, so perhaps we will be safe there. But one interesting thing is while those mayhem was happening, we were lucky we didn't see what happened, but some people were not lucky because they had to face the mob. Unfortunately, no one lost his life at that time, but you can imagine the gory scene, people, your house being burnt in your own front, you know? And then, but surprisingly, there was an old man at that time, he was from my place, and the mob was about to kill him, slaughter him actually, because he was old, old people are difficult to deal with. He didn't want to cooperate to allow his house to get burnt. And they were about to slaughter him. And wallah, a woman who was a local, she lied down on that man. And she said, look, if you're going to slaughter this man, you're going to slaughter me too. And that's how he survived. Of course, when you come back after a few days, you could see the gory scenes. You could see how I've never seen a house burnt like that. Because in most houses, when they burn, you see after a few hours, the fire is quenched, right? But these properties were burnt and allowed to quench themselves. You could see smoke from the cracks of the walls. Because it was conduit, you could see, you cannot imagine it. And I remember when we went there, because we had a poultry farm, we went after a week to pick up the chickens. The chickens were very hungry and confused. And we had a dog. The dog also didn't know what to do with it. He doesn't know, he's confused. But there's something that struck me. I had a friend, he was a Yoruba guy, his name was Benga. Benga kept looking at me. Benga looked in my eyes, I looked in his eyes. He was my close friend. And he couldn't say a word, I couldn't say a word, because we were all confused. He is confused why his friend's house was burnt, why his was not burnt, while his friend, he has to lose his friend to circumstance. Now when you move to the city where now the people look like me, now there were retaliations, or they call it reprisal. People, when we were moving to the city, you see dead bodies of police, dead bodies of you don't know who, you see burnt cars as you move along. Shops were looted. Unfortunately, even some people, they don't know, especially the Igbos. The Igbos are not, they don't know the politics of Jos. If it's a full house of Fulani and versus the locals, the Igbos, I don't care. Why you burn the Igbos property? Now,
Baby.
What's now? There's a little background noise, but I can go on if you can hear me.
Yes, you can go on, sir.
Excellent. So we moved, of course, to Kano around February, perhaps, if I can remember, perhaps February, March of 2001. And then, of course, the Jos crisis became a recurrent decimal. There was a lot of killings happening here and there. And then you have reprisal attacks. Because anytime the killing happened in the Plateau state, the dead bodies are being brought back. And you know how these dead bodies look. These people are not killed. It's not, when you ever want to kill a chicken, you respect the chicken, you lay it down and cut the throat. But when it's a mob attack, it's just machetes, you know. They cut open anywhere because they want to mutilate, you know. So when those mutilated bodies come, the youth, of course, of Kano, unfortunately, misinformation also, then they vent their anger on the people, the innocent people that are not indigenous of Kano. So you can see the ripple effect of that. And of course, as I said, I kind of emphasize on the Igbos, because if you look at the Igbos, both in Plateau State and Kano, because they have property, they are businessmen. Nobody that has a property and business wants crisis because he knows when a crisis comes, his property will be looted and stolen. So the Igbos somehow are caught in the crossfire, and they pay the price of what they don't know what to do. I mean, and then I remember when the reprisal attack started, it started again in the same area I was living, around the Shagaro Potters, South Borgandu area. We went there because we were young. We wanted to see what is happening. You could see again mutilated bodies. Churches were burnt, you know. You could see how a woman, I never knew a human being swells up when he's rotten. The stomach was swollen, you know, the instance time swollen because these people were being killed, you know. But I remember that there was an Igbo man living at Shagari Quarters. We hosted him in our house. He stayed for, I think, a week or so with his family. He had a very pretty daughter. And I emphasize on the pretty because it's been a long time I've seen that kind of pretty girl. But he has to stay there. And after some time, of course, he left Kano, perhaps, I don't know. Now, I painted the picture, of course, one my own perspective and the other another perspective, to tell you that these crises or religious or ethnic crises have ripple effects. And I can tell you, if you ask the people, the locals of Plateau State, why they were killing or started the killing, and if you ask the people, the Hausa Fulani of Plateau, why they retaliated, or you ask the people of Kano why they have justification, and that is the most crazy thing. Everyone justifies his own crime because they said these people want to dominate us. The other people say that those people are not, for example, infidels, then we have to kill them. So there's always some justification for this kind of mayhem. And of course, the reality, the indigenous settler situation in most of the Middle Belt countries, who is the indigent and who is the settler, that one also a justification. And another justification is reprisal. Okay, my brother has been killed. Now I have to take revenge. So if your brother is killed in Plateau State, then go to Plateau State and revenge. Don't revenge on innocent people in Kano, for example. I don't know if even you want to take revenge, but of course I don't subscribe to anything revengeful. Now let's quickly go to Rwanda. Nigeria is totally different from Rwanda. Why? Because Nigeria is in West Africa, Rwanda is in East Africa. Rwanda has roughly a population of 12 million people, roughly that of my state, Kano. Nigeria today, population of 200 million and growing. But there's something that is similar between Nigeria and Rwanda. Our evolution is similar. We were both colonized. They by the Germans in the beginning, then after the World War II by the Belgians, we by the British all along. We had a civil war, they had a civil war. They had a genocide and we had a genocide. And you may argue that, but I assure you that if you look at the numbers and you look at the numbers that of innocent Nigerians that have been killed from 1999 to date, you will agree to me that there has been perhaps something similar to a genocide. But you may say it's not targeting a single tribe, perhaps, but I am telling you the mayhem is alarming because we don't keep the numbers. The Rwandans are estimating that in 100 days, you have 1 million people killed. I can assure you the Nigerians that have lost their properties, many lost their loved ones due to ethnic crisis or religious crisis. I'm telling the number is perhaps in the millions. But what caused the genocide of Rwanda? Rwanda at the beginning, of course, had roughly divided between the Hutus and the Tutsis. The Hutus are the majority in the number. But when the Belgians came, Germans came, perhaps even at the beginning, before the Belgians came in, somehow they found the Hutus easily to deal with. So they kind of favored the Hutus. Even if you will see Nigeria, you could see that when the British came, they kind of favored certain part of the country. Sometimes, not because they loved them, but because of their convenience. Remember, the Europeans did not come to help you. They came to take your resources. So they will always subscribe or try to befriend to someone that can easily give the resources. And they like a structure, because they deal by indirect routes. So anywhere there's a leadership, they kind of tend to favor that part. So they favored the Tutsis at that time, the minorities. And then the Belgians came similarly. But then after the independence, now remember, democracy is just a majority rule. And now the majority, remember, are the Hutus. So when the Hutus took over power, they started sharing propaganda. At that time, of course, you didn't have the social media. It was through the radio about why, how, or the reason why the Hutus should exterminate the Tutsis and gain prominence so that they can be the rulers of their land. And that, of course, propaganda kept building up. It kept building up, and it just waited for a trigger. And what was the trigger? The trigger was the going down of the flight or the plane of the president at that time, who was a Hutu. In that plane, again, there was the president of Burundi, who was also a Hutu. And I bring us back, before Burundi and Rwanda were a single country, then divided into two. So those two presidents, both Hutus, were in a plane, and the plane was gone down. And when it got down, then there was radio broadcast. There was a radio broadcast that the people that gone down that plane were the Tutsis. And then the Tutsis must be killed. They are the cockroaches. And they said, cut down the tall trees. This is the quotation they made. Because the Tutsis are the tall people. And you can see the president of Rwanda today is a Tutsi. You can see how tall he is, right? And perhaps some of his daughters, you see how pretty they are and very, very tall. So the Tutsis are generally tall people. And then they said in a scripted message, cut down the tall trees. And they really, really did cut down the tall trees. The mob were in operation, supported by the army. You can see in this picture of the slide, these are the skulls of the people that were killed. You can see the skull, all of them have been broken by machetes, by spears. You can see what propaganda or sharing of things on the radio can incite. And you see, but what are the causes? As I said, insightful statements over the radio. People calling others cockroaches, people saying that their own tribe is superior. But I have a good news for you, or a shocking news, that your tribe is not superior to any other tribe. Your tribe is just a tribe. You might have the numbers. You might think you are superior, but you're not. You are just an equal human being. No tribe is superior to any other tribe. And another thing that causes this genocide or even recurring ethnic tribal clash is because there's no consequence. Now people kill people and then they move freely. Sometimes they even want to dine with the government officials. Now they are negotiating with the killers. You don't negotiate with people. You prosecute them. You take them to court of law, and they face the consequences of what they have done. And of course, we cannot remove the interference of Westerners, because you see, whether we like it or not, we think that the enemy is our neighbor. The enemy is the other tribe. But I am telling you, while you study the history, you will see that the enemy has a pointed nose. Is white and he has a pointed nose. Maybe, I hope you are not recording this. I don't want to be in trouble. But how do you solve this problem? The Rwandan solution. How did Rwanda, from a country that faced genocide, the killing of 1 million, roughly 1 million people, men, women, some of these women unfortunately even raped before they were killed, children, infant, it didn't matter. When this crisis happened, because they're all Christians, some of them thought, okay, let's go to the church, because the church is a sanctuary. We feel the Hutus will not come to the church. But you can imagine that the priests of the church, of most churches, because they were Hutus, they assembled these people into groups. Children, women, men, and those were just like Hitler did Hitler did in the World War II, where extermination chambers, people were killed irrespective. They have to be killed because the instruction was to kill the cockroaches, destroy them, exterminate them. it was a gory scene, and you can see the skulls of the people. So the panel of inquiry was set by the Rwandan government, because now, after one thing that destroyed the genocide was the RPF, which was that at that time, of course, headed by the present president Paul Kagame. They were of course military enforcement, and they took over power. And when they came, of course, they didn't seek for revenge. They tried to build reconciliation. So a panel of inquiry was set up, and everybody that was found guilty was imprisoned. You see, as I said, the consequence for action. Once you don't have a consequence for actions, then you have a repetition of all this, and that's why Nigeria has a recurring of this ethnic crisis again and again. Because I know that if I incite people and we go and kill and burn, there's no consequence. Nobody cares. Nobody pays for the crime. And another thing that is important is that there was compensation for the victims. People, of course, it's not easy to face the trauma. People that survived, they have lost almost all their loved ones. Somebody is the only one now in the family. A woman will tell you that she was in the church and she had to faint and put blood on her face to pretend that she had died. But while she was pretending, her little babies were slaughtered. You see, this is how these people survived. So you have to get them some compensation for them to handle this trauma, because this kind of trauma, you cannot outgrow it. It stays with you for the rest of your life. To see that you are in a church, your babies in your hands, they are picked, they are slaughtered, and you have to paint blood put blood on your face to pretend that you are dead. And you know, this kind of things, it's a permanent scar. So you have to compensate, give property, give money, perhaps even give counseling, because some of these things are deep traumas. And you have to create sometimes opportunities for the minorities. Some of these countries, in our country, in Nigeria, there are certain minorities that feel that the country is not in their favor. And if you have those people, they have genuine concerns, listen to them, give them opportunities, either in governance or in the job market. And this is closely related. You have to give the youth jobs, because in all these crises, genocide, ethnic crisis, tribal crisis, the fuel of the crisis is the youth. Because the fuel is the youth, we have to try to get this youth engaged. But once you leave the youth unengaged, then power-hungry politicians, and I repeat again, power-hungry politicians will use the youth so that they can get famous and make money. This is all about, because if you look at Nigeria, before 99, when the military was ruling, you had less of all this ethnic crisis. But once you come into politics, with anybody opening his mouth and saying anything he likes, especially now with the social media, anybody passing hate, and even surprisingly, some of us, the intellectuals, the PhD holders, the master's holders, are even helping in sending this propaganda. But we as intellectuals, we can do better. Anytime you see a statement that is insightful, you stop it, you don't share it, because that sharing is creating a ripple effect. So we should try our best not to pass the crisis, because as I said, these religious crises are ripples. Now, if you go and meet the local of Plateau State, he tells you, look, it's a long history. He said the emirs have enslaved them. Because the emirs have enslaved them, now is the time for revenge. Because if you keep on revenging, then there's not going to be end of anything. There must be a time, this is the 21st century, if you have any grudges with your neighbor, you seek it through the legal means, the peaceful means. But killing and maiming is not going to stop anything. Because anytime you kill someone, you are creating a ripple effect, you see? And sometimes the people you are killing are innocent, they don't know. For example, me, I'm not in a bloodline of an emir. So I didn't have any slave. I don't think my ancestors had any slave within anybody. So why you punish me for the sins? So perhaps I try to make it to round up, not to take much of our time. The most important thing is, and I believe it's a very graphic story, talking about dead bodies, dead women, dead children, but we must be ready to have uncomfortable discussions. These discussions must be done on platforms like this, to listen to each and every one of us. Only then, because this is what Rwanda did. They have a system where the Hutus and the Tutsis come, face each other and discuss. The Hutus apologizing and the Tutsis accepting the apology. We must not avoid these uncomfortable discussions, because I think if we discuss and find solution, only then we can build a prosperous Nigeria. And by the time we build a prosperous Nigeria, it is directly linked to the prosperity of the black man, and the black man will gain his rightful place in the world at large. I would like to thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you very, very much, our distinguished lecturer, for this very, very lucid presentation. I think we have learned one or two from this very, very interesting presentation. So I would just like to summarize one or two key points from what our distinguished lecturer has said. First is that, we should be careful of social media incitement and the other things he talked about. We should also ensure that we don't amplify some of the sentiments on social media. He mentioned that even those who have degrees, who are PhD holders and MSc holders, are also helping in spreading some of this propaganda. So if you see comments on social media or anywhere else that is inimical to the growth and development of the country, you should not share it, or you should contribute by stopping those who are sharing it, something like that. Okay, and the lessons from Rwanda, of course, is that they went through counseling, they created opportunities for their people in terms of job, and they compensated the victims of these menace. And to cap it all, I want to just especially thank our distinguished lecturer for this presentation. And I will just invite comments and questions from some of our members in 5 minutes. But before the questions, I would like to just ask my question, sir. I want to ask that what's your take about this Nigerian situation, about the clamor for sovereign national conference or national conference? Because from your analysis, you mentioned that we need to discuss, we need to talk to each other, we need to bring this matter to the front burner and paste it squarely by discussing it. So, what's your take concerning this recurrent clamor for sovereign national conference or what? National conference in Nigeria? Thank you. If you have questions from the other members, just signify by raising your hand, and then you'll be called. Thank you. So would you like to take the first question, sir, about the clamor for sovereign national conference in Nigeria? What's your take on it? Is this something that is viable? Can it lead us anywhere? Can it solve this recurrent tension we have in the land? Is it a proper way to go? And in what way can this be achieved? Thank you. We can't hear you, sir.
Okay, I think now you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just a caveat is that I am not an expert in governance. I'm an electrical engineer, but Nigeria, I don't think, is short of conferences. We have had many conferences. If you remember, even the last time we had a conference during Jonathan administration. So the problems are already discussed. I don't think there's anything new to discuss, except we want to again spend money and host some rich politicians in Abuja, and they, and they make money from us again. These things, I'm telling you, these conferences have been documented. The solutions of Nigeria are already documented. People know them. I don't think we need any conference anymore. I am telling you, when you look at the conference with Jonathan, the books, the books, when they brought the books, I think they brought them in Ghana must go.
Yeah.
You get it? So I don't think you need, in my own opinion, you need another conference. What you need is to dig on those books and see what people have discussed.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I will call on Mr. Ishaq Hamza Ahmad to please go ahead with the question or comment.
Okay. Good afternoon and good evening to everybody. I don't know if you can hear me.
We
Yes, I
can
can
hear
hear
you,
you.
sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Abubakar, for the wonderful presentation. It is indeed a very inspiring one. But mine is that, Doctor, I'm currently in Nigeria, and to be very candid with our members, Nigeria has never been so divided, so confused, and so unfocused like what we are observing now. And the instances you gave us with respect to Rwanda has to do with two ethnic groups, and which is very easy to settle. And the point of contentment and contention, sorry, is very straightforward. But in a case like Nigeria, where we have several ethnic groups, and there is no, you cannot really pinpoint what exactly is the problem that is causing this division, whether ethnic, whether religion, whether what have you. Because in case of Rwanda, it was not a religion problem. It was not but what in a case like Nigeria now, how do you think we can address issues like this? Because we are so divided, we are so ununited as a country. Thank you.
So should I respond or I take note of it?
Yes, go ahead and give your remark.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I understand his point. He's trying to make that he feel the Rwandan crisis is quite easier to maintain because it involved only two, perhaps, large ethnic groups. But I agree with you that Nigeria has never been divided, and I can assure you that the problem of the dividedness of the country is directly related to politics, because our politicians, they find it very easy. Because even if I am a politician, for example, it's easier for me to, and I believe, for example, assuming hypothetically, assuming I am contesting election in a state, for example, in the north, it's easier for me to demonize certain groups in the south so that my people can rally behind me. You get the point? It's easier for the, so what has divided us is not, because we're not divided like this. Before, I told you, before 99, I told you I played football with all my friends. From almost in the pitch, you could count almost, I don't know, because in Plateau State, I can assure you there are almost 20 tribes. And some of the tribes don't even understand each other. Hausa is they speak Hausa. Hausa is their official language. So that's a state alone. Talk less of the whole of the country. The whole country perhaps has more than 500 languages. But what I am saying is that if our politicians are able to focus and we are able to make legislations to stop all these insightful statements, this incitement, because I tell you, I really, for me personally, as I said, a caveat is I'm not an expert in governance, so what I say, take it with a pinch of salt. But I believe the politicians are responsible for this division. They are the ones inciting. Even if you see those youth, all the weapons they get it from the politicians. If you see a mob with an AK-47, I'm telling you, I can assure you he got it from either directly or indirectly from a politician. So unless we still come back and create legislation that punish politicians that participate in these ethnic problems, I don't think the solution is going to be near. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, our distinguished speaker. Is there any other person with a remark or a comment based on this lecture for the day? Please just put up your hand and you'll be called in the next 10 seconds.
Sorry, Mr. Teslim, I have a question.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sani Kasim. Thank you, Mr. Abubakar, for this wonderful presentation. My question is straightforward. Mr. Abubakar, what can you say about the people calling for dividing the country? Because there are many people are agitating and are calling for dividing the country into maybe two, north and south, or maybe into Arewa land, Yoruba land, and Igbo land. What's your take on this? Yeah, is it the way forward for us? Please, I just want to hear your view. And thank you very much.
Okay. Perhaps the moderator, can I respond, moderator? Can I respond?
Before you respond, sir, let me probably just take 2 questions at a time.
Okay.
Can I call Mr. Abdullahi Abbas Adam to please ask the question?
Yeah. Hello. Assalamu alaikum and good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question for the presenter, but please, before that, can you pardon me to add a word or two from my experience based on what he said? Also, okay, permitted?
Yeah, you can, but please just in a minute.
Yeah, to be as very brief as possible. Also, I had the same experience the presenter had with respect to the Just crisis. I could remember before the 1999 incidents, we lived together with the locals. We sleep in one another's houses, and in fact, we cannot just divide. But all of a sudden, we now live in a situation whereby only a main road divides the two areas. This side is the locals, and this side is the House Fulani side. So, should by mistake cross the main road to the other side, maybe if you take 2 steps away from the main road, then you are a dead man. Likewise, the other person crossing to the other side. And also, I could remember there was a time I went to Jos. We were discussing by the main road with my friends. Then one of the locals just came and passed by. When he came, he saw them. They lived together in the same house. They grew together, in the same area. But he was directly, specifically talking to me. Abbas, when do you come? I said, Tijot, I came the day before yesterday. How is your parents? This. And he just greeted me only, and he went his way. So when he went his way, my friends just smiled. I said, what happened? He said they could not remember a day where the local and the houses greeted each other. This is to show you the hatred and the division. And also, at our point here, because I have this same experience, we here live as Nigerians, regardless of you are from the south, I am from the north, or whatever, and we share everything in common. But when we go back home, the relationship ends here. When I get back home, I have no any issue. I have no any business with somebody from the south. Likewise, my friends here from the south. So if our politicians are united, and we know all these crises are politically motivated, we are divided only at the grassroots, they are united there. So what can we do at our own level? What can we do at our own level to contribute towards the unity of our country? Because we know definitely we don't expect things to just change instantly, because we know they are politically motivated. But we as youths are the future of the country. We have a role to play. So how do we keep this unity? How do we go back home and enlighten our people who have never been to the south, and our people from the south who has never been to the north, but they live based on some propaganda? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will invite our guest speaker to give us his remarks based on these 2 questions before we take one more.
So thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. The first question, I think, by Sani Kasim was regarding division of the country. But the main problem is that, for example, countries have divided and some have prospered. Even this country we are used to be together with Singapore, and then they separated, and I think they both prospered. But the problem of division of the country these days is along what lines? This is the question. I could remember, because then I was so active in following politics. There was a time Muammar Gaddafi, if you remember, said Nigeria should be divided into a Christian south and a Muslim north. And I think David Mark, at that time the Senate President, said he's a madman. And it's true, he's a madman. Because the whole north is not a Muslim north. And the whole south is not a Christian south. You get the point. So how do you divide the country? This is the question. Division of the country is, I believe, division of the country is not a solution. Once you have a responsible governance, responsible government, I'm telling you, Nigeria will prosper. If you remember during the Civil War, the Igbos, they had the Bendel, even in the Igbo land, now we have Bendel Igbo and the other Igbos. I think if there's an Igbo man, he can correct me. There was crisis in the between the Igbos and the Niger Deltans. Even within the Igbos, there's this Igbo and the other Igbo, and they are. Have you seen the fighting in the Igbo land on farmland between this village and this village? Hundreds of people die because of farmland dispute within Igbos. Similarly, of course, within other tribes. You see, so dividing Nigeria, it's one of the most complicated things we will ever do. I think that it's easier to harmonize the tribes and give everybody, and I truly believe the people calling for restructuring, you know, have everybody have some autonomy to his own resources. You get it? And then the federal government doesn't have too much control in the center. You have less control, like you have in America, for example, today. The president has less control over the states. The states that, none of the states will try to prosper by themselves. And then by the prospering, they will create jobs. Once they create jobs, all this insecurity will reduce. But if you have poverty in the land, you have people, youth don't have jobs, and you decide to divide the country, I'm telling you, you are creating chaos. This is my personal opinion. The next question is about how do we educate our people? This is one of it. A platform like this. Let's talk, let's share, let's understand each other. You know, when we go on the social media and someone from our, or maybe on Facebook, someone says something that is wrong, let's try to correct him. Let's try to advise him. Sometimes we go personal. You know, I told you, and I remember in my story, I told you how Benga, my friend, I'm still looking for Benga. I have not found him because I don't know his surname. When we came to pick our chickens, wallah, I tell you, there's a look he gave me. It's a look of he's feeling guilty for what has happened to me. It tells you that the children, they don't have all this hatred. It's when you are growing, sorry to say, our I don't want to say our parents, but our elders teach us all this hate. They tell you stories that are not true. They tell you stories that are lies, are fabricated about other tribes so that you can hate the other tribe. But I'm telling you, as young children, we play together. Nobody cares about anything. So let's do this platform. Social media is the platform. If you are physically at home, reach out to your friends from other tribes. If you have if you can marry from other tribes, try to marry. Abbas, I suggest you marry somebody from Birom or Angas. Because now if you marry, I don't think if there's crisis, you wouldn't touch your wife, right? Or your wife wouldn't touch you. I mean, so let's see that. Perhaps this will solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we'll take the last question. I will call on Mr. Emmanuel Francis to ask his questions, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah,
I just want to actually thank the presenter. Are you hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to really thank the presenter for this wonderful topic. What I just want to say is, as I'm speaking to you right now, I just want to clarify some issues. In Nigeria, I'm in Jos. So we see our country today, in fact, just now with all the up and downs before, is relatively peaceful than any most part of. I'm trying to say those our brothers that are afraid of maybe because of this lecture, Jos is it's not calm, Jos is very, very calm now. They has done best and all the tribes now. In fact, there's a relatively good this is I wanted to just clarify to all of us.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for letting us know that there's peace now in Jos, and Plateau State in general is as peaceful as it has been. So thank you. Is it still cold, or the weather is impacted already with the crisis?
The whole area now, the weather is very hot.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So in conclusion, I think we would want to thank our distinguished speaker again for his wealth of knowledge and experience.